I am a therapist on Whidbey Island, a psychotherapist, and for 35 years. And every year I do this self-care wheel, but usually I just do it with myself and I videotape it and then I post the link so other people can make their wheel for the year. And I understand that people really enjoy making their wheel for the year. And so I thought, well, it would actually be a lot more fun to get on and to do it with you. So thank you for joining in. And we are going to work on making your self-care wheel for this year, 2021. And I want to start out with a little bit of, some inspirational quotes on self-care. And I invite you to grab either a quote or grab a word from one of these quotes that really speaks to you, that kind of inspires you, that you want to hang on to as you work on your own self-care wheel. Just be tuning in, just listen to a word that you like or a quote that you like, and then feel free to steal it from this list. The truth was, though, the fact that I'd kind of deprioritized self-care was perhaps the very reason why I needed it so badly. Jennifer Ashton. Simply put, self-care means taking care of yourself. It means taking responsibility for your well-being in all the important areas of your life. Robin Gobin. I love that one because as we do the self-care wheel, you're going to see that it really is about hitting all the important areas of your life. Just for today, I will take care of my body. I will exercise it, care for it, and nourish it, and not abuse it or neglect it. Sybil Patridge. I kind of love that one because so many people go into a state of self-neglect rather than self-care. And so even though our self-care work, when I do it, is much broader than what we do with the body, I do want you to think of it as you're either in self-care or you are in self-neglect. So, I loved in that quote, the just for today, just thinking of it as today. All right, next one. Self-care is not an indulgence. Self-care is a discipline. It requires tough-mindedness, a deep and personal understanding of your priorities, and a respect for both yourself and the people you choose to spend your life with. Tammy Foreman. And she kind of started her quote from a very old Audre Lorde quote. So I thought you deserved to see the original quote, which is by Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. So I invite you to grab a quote or a word from that page that inspires you or motivates you or makes you think, okay, I can grab my own self-care from there. And maybe you have your own quote that you want to hang on to for 2021. That's fine. I just want to give you a starting place. And we are going to be using that word in the middle of your self-care wheel, or that little quote in the middle of your self-care wheel. So I want to show you what I mean by wheel. You take a circle and you basically divide it into 6 parts. So it's like you make a big X and then a line down the middle to get your 6 parts. And don't try to make it perfect. Like, don't do that to yourself. This is just a messy little guide that you hang on to. And I will show you how I did mine this year. I did mine a little different. I took because remember, I do them every year. I actually took the quote that inspires me and I wrote it in a ring and I made a little center in mine. And I did a little miniature painting of the water in mine because I am spending a lot of time going out walking what I call rain or shine. So I wanted to stick that in the middle of my self-care wheel because really I have been doing a lot of rain walks. I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's wet here. And so some of you I know are in the Pacific Northwest with me. Hands up if you're in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, yes, we're rain people. And I took this quote from a song that I just love that I've been listening to. And the song is called The Most Beautiful Things. And the line that I wrote around my little rain walk water scene is maybe the most beautiful things in this life are felt and never seen. So I spend a lot of time with my self-care work, making sure that I am addressing my feelings. And so that part about felt and never seen really felt important to the way I view my self-care. But remember, my self-care is just for me. Your self-care is for you. So here I am at my, I should show you where we are. See, I've got these beautiful flowers on my desk, and I think everybody should have a desk that looks more like mine. Can you see my big messes, my collection of seashells and my paintbrushes and my stuff all over the place? Yes, you need a messy, playful place in your life, and I hope you end up with something like this one day in a room full of light, because it's a nice place to sit and get messy and get down with this self-care wheel. So grab your pen and paper because that's what you need. And I'm going to give you a short list. Here is the short list that I want you to write down. Fun, that's first. Social, creative or spiritual, caring for your feelings, retreat and take a break, and the word foundation. So those are what I would call some categories. It's very important that whatever you do for self-care, that an important section of your self-care is about just having fun. Okay, so whatever that is for you. So I want you to now focus in and take a few minutes and list some things that are important for you in your self-care. It could be a practice that focuses underneath those. So for example, for fun, for me these days, I am taking some botanical watercolor class. For caring for my feelings, I do journaling. For retreating, I like to read a lot, so I put reading under there. So go ahead and fill out your own list. And if you have additional categories, like maybe meditation is on yours, or maybe you have something particular that you love to do, go ahead and list it. I want you to zero in and get as specific as you can on things that just help and support you with your self-care. And if you are one of the people that have felt a little lost, like you're not doing much self-care, that is okay. This becomes a springboard for you to start listing things you would like to see yourself doing. So for example, moving into a lot of rain walks became something I just wanted to see myself doing. I wasn't somebody that used to go out and walk a lot in the rain. Now I'm somebody that doesn't miss a walk any day, rain, no matter. So, it's an area of growth for me. So it's okay if you aren't doing these things, but these are things you want to see yourself doing. Put them down on your list. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to fill out your list.
Hey, Sarri, are we supposed to be filling the list into our circle and pie shapes or just
No,
off to the
not
side?
yet. Just on paper.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just on paper so that you have something to draw from that you're going to then put into your circle. Thank you for clarifying, Rachel.
Sorry, what did you mean by foundation?
I'm coming to that.
Oh.
So you can't fill out foundation because I'm gonna tell you that everybody's gonna put that on your wheel. I'll tell you that in a minute, what that is. So that one you don't yet know. Okay, let's see what came to your page. Just put up your hand so I can call on you and hear what has fallen to the page for you for 2021. Oh, Deborah, thank you.
So I'm looking at retreat, take a break. And my word for that is wander. So I bought a little van this summer, Dino van, and he's going to allow me to wander and spend time in nature because he's self-contained-ish. So
Oh, that
I'm
is
looking forward to
cool.
that.
Tammy.
So I'm going to, where I live, you have to plan in advance and make a specific time to do something or appointment or buy a ticket. So I'm going to be sure for Under Fun to plan one outing a week. I'm going to date myself a little bit.
Oh, love that phrase. Anybody feel like stealing whatever you hear from anyone else? That is completely legal in the self-care wheel. So you hear something you love, you just go ahead and steal it. Karen.
I've got one which is under fun. I also have move my body for fun.
Okay.
So what word might capture both those things, but I have a swimming pool near me that I can make a reservation for my own little lane. And then I sing to myself and move my body around in the lane. I don't really swim anymore.
Nice.
It's fun.
That is fun. Anybody else? We'll take one more. Sandra.
For fun, and that would go also for a way to take a break is when I'm cleaning the kitchen, I have found that it goes a long way if I put some salsa music and I just dance while I'm doing the stuff, particularly if there's nobody else around, and I get to do the chore that I'm doing, move my body, and also it brightens my day.
Love that. How many of you, put up your hand if you could use a little brightening during those mundane chores? Salsa with laundry. I'm all in. Thank you for that suggestion. That is great. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we're going to get a little more specific and we're going to drill down into your wheel. So you have 6 sections. One section on your wheel is going to say foundation. So you really are only going to have 5 sections left. So I'm going to write that on mine and hold it up to show you what I mean. See where it says foundation? That's one of my sections. That should be one of your sections. You're going to get 5 optional sections to write whatever you want in them, but foundation goes on everybody's wheel. And foundation is eating, sleeping, and exercise. We just lump them all together. There they go under foundation. And why I want you to have foundation as one of your places on your wheel. There are times, no matter how great you are doing with your self-care, when things just kind of fall apart, and maybe you were up all night, or maybe you had an awful night's sleep, or maybe something happened on the news that was just, very upsetting, or maybe you had a rough week, whatever it was, but you get thrown off your foundation. You find yourself eating complete junk. You find yourself not sleeping, and you've like stopped salsa dancing to your dishwashing. Like and you didn't show up for that date that you had a ticket for. You just blew it off and said, I can't do it today. So our foundation is where we constantly check in and come back. And an issue that a lot of people have with self-care work is when you get thrown back into your foundation, you just forget all the other aspects of self-care, and you don't necessarily tend to foundation as seriously as it needs tending to. So foundation is something you check in with almost daily. It's, how did I sleep? Am I eating okay? And am I doing just some basic movement exercise, whatever that is? And that is a critical part of self-care. And if you have blown off your foundation, it's the other things aren't necessarily going to fill in what's really needed. If you haven't slept, you need to sleep. So we come back to foundation over and over on the wheel. And that's why I make you do it as a wheel rather than as linear, because I don't want you to think of when you're having to come back to your foundation that somehow you're failing at self-care. You're not. You're doing the right self-care that you need right at that moment. You're focusing on foundation. If you need to catch up on sleep and nap through the day or have a pajama day because you were up all night, that is self-care. And so I really want you to honor foundation. So that gives you 5 other areas. So for your 5 areas, I want you to drill in on what are the most important practices for you right now for your self-care, and try to put them in a category. So if it's creative, write creative in one of your boxes. If it's spiritual, then write spiritual. If it's wandering, then do wandering. If it's writing, do writing. Whatever your category is for that, you can take those categories I gave you: caring for your feelings, retreat and take a break, having fun, social, or you can just focus in on your own practices. But I want something in each area of the wheel. And it's really important that one of these areas involves social stuff, even during the pandemic. I go pretty far out of my way these days to do some really special social things with friends, either online or in person. So I have a little community that I live in, and we take walks, and we've been training my puppy together. So I have like social time where people come over in the yard with their little dog and we play. But I also do stuff online with friends, right, Tammy? Tammy, what did you learn to do online this year?
I learned how to knit with Sarri.
So I am like a major knitter, and Tammy is now a phenomenal knitter. I mean, one pandemic was all it took.
No, I am a terrible knitter who loves to knit.
She makes great stuff, actually. She really does. So Tammy and I get on, and she's knitting her stuff and I'm knitting mine. I have another friend that I paint with online. We do watercolors together. And I have another friend we get on, and we go over like poems and literature and songs. And we just do that like early in the morning once a week. So I am, my social scene has really shifted from stuff that I used to do. Oh, somebody typed in that knitting is part of their therapy. Yeah. And for a long time, knitting was always showing up as part of my self-care on my wheel. And now there's other things that are also showing up on the wheel. So I just want you to kind of flesh out your wheel. And I really want to challenge you that you do it each year, and do it with me in January or February. At the start of each year, you do a whole new wheel, because something deepens and something shifts. I've been doing this for several years online with people. And what I'm noticing in my own process of doing it every single year is that some of these practices started as sort of like beginner steps. And they became, over years, very deep practices. And I got into classes on them. And I'll give you an example. One was meditation and self-compassion. so one year I just put meditation on my wheel, and I wanted to be sure that I was spending some time each day doing just a little bit of meditation. And my meditation practice over years became studying self-compassion. And self-compassion uses meditation in its practices as well. And that turned out to be, a class that I joined online on it. It turned out to be something for healthcare workers that I got involved in. And then it became something that I share with others. So a practice can grow over time. And what you'll see in your wheels is growth as you deepen in and really commit to your self-care practices, and that you know what your practices are. So are there any questions that are coming up for you as you're filling in your wheel? Deborah?
Can you show us yours again, Sarri? Are we naming each of our little circle spots, fun, circle, fun, social, creative, or writing what those
Yes.
things represent?
Yes, you're doing both. You start with the big category,
Yeah.
and then you put the practices inside there
Okay.
that you want to
Okay.
do, as many as you want,
Okay.
So yeah, or you can just focus in on maybe 2 in each box, or 1, whatever works for
Got
you.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there other
Sarri,
people's
do you-
questions?
Do you have a way that you like to lay it out? Like, I don't know if you can see mine, but
Right. Yes. Yeah. I like starting it big like you have. And then I like getting to a place where I recreate it very small, so that I can kind of keep it with me, stick it in either whatever journal I carry around for the year, or by my bed where I review it at night and I pull it out of my journal, or, so start out big, give yourself space like that, or whatever size you're doing, but be open to kind of rewriting this a few times until you have it the size that you want, till it looks the way that you want, and that it's your map that you're going to keep coming back to. So like the example that Tammy gave us on her map of buying dates with herself, a date with herself. I love that. I just love that. And I could see how a date with myself would be such a good thing for my own self-care. So I might put that under, I might make an area that is retreat time, and I would put that inside there. But you could call it whatever you call it. Retreat time could also be what Deborah talked about, the wandering, right? But then that place of talking about the salsa dancing, right? And how we make sure that we're having uplifting moments, no matter what it is that we're doing, that Sandra suggested. You could call that uplifting moments. You could call that exactly what it is, to remind yourself, I need to have uplifting moments, and make the mundane more interesting. So, there's no wrong rules. Everything that I'm giving you is just a little bit of a way to get started. So, Dan, what's showing up on your wheel?
So for me, a few things. One is interesting that running seems to keep showing up in various categories. I think it's a social way that I can go out running with, a few different friends, and then also a way to retreat and process emotion and feelings as well. So I'll share that.
Yeah, so I've had that too, where one particular thing on my wheel runs into several areas. So you can put it in those different areas, and then you start to get a theme of something that you're very passionate about and how much it helps your self-care across different categories. Linda Warbonnet. Hi, Linda. You want to unmute yourself and share something with us?
I have been finding for retreat and take a break ever since my son stopped doing naps. We do quiet time 1 hour a day. He's now 12 and I still do quiet time 1 hour a day. I go into the bedroom, people leave me alone. I could take a nap, do whatever I want. And then also I've been finding I don't plan anything on Saturdays. I wake up and just let the day flow, and that's been really healing for me.
Un-
So,
Unscheduled time.
yes.
Yes.
I
Oh
just
my
recently
gosh.
discovered it, and it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I had that as one of my focuses, and I think it was 2018 was unscheduled time. That was a really important thing. And then I think that's when I broke my hip. And I ended up with a whole lot of unscheduled time. Oh, which reminds me, if you are recovering from something, if you are in a healing moment in your life, or you're recovering from drugs and alcohol, or you're recovering from anything else that's going on in your life, or you had an injury, or a serious health issue, put recovery down as one of your spaces, because you need to devote time to that, time to your healing. And that doesn't necessarily show up every year on everybody's wheel, but if you are in that, it should have its own space and its own time. And if that just messed up your wheel, remember, you're going to remake your wheel anyway, because you're just getting some of the basics right now. So that's a really important thing, because I had to redo my wheel that year, because I had like all these travel trips planned was that year, and I was really into exploring or wandering, and everything had to be canceled. And it was a year that was focused completely on recovery and healing, and that was self-care. So that can happen. Sarah, what's showing up on yours?
Hi, everyone. Well, it's funny because I had added medical to foundation. So then I just shifted it into a recovery section with doctor's appointments, boundaries around my energy, and how much time I schedule, like having a generous schedule. That was also under the retreat and take a break section.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also noticed, like, for fun, it's funny, like I noticed, some things I need less structure and some things I need more structure. So I said I need to have structured time for creativity, not just saying, just create when you feel like it, but actually have a specific time for that.
Perfect. You're leading us to the next spot, which is now drill down a little further on the things that you wrote in your wheel and put a little thing next to them of when does this happen? Is this a Tuesday thing? Is this an everyday thing? Is this a once a month thing? Or if you have a goal to get there, whatever that goal is, but get specific. Delana, hi, you're on here. Okay, unmute yourself and throw us something that's on your wheel.
I'm not doing very much self-care that's actually healthy. So
okay,
I recognize that. I love my work. I'm in the most creative and successful part of my work. So sometimes work is part of my self-care, for like I use work to cope with the things, but then I don't leave my office very much. So it's really jumbly. So I have a wheel, I have a whiteboard desk, so I can't show it to you like that, but prettying up my house and prettying up me. So like I went and got my nails done yesterday. I left my office, I put on a mask, and I sat in the thing, and the lady dipped my nails, and it was glorious.
Okay,
so that's probably like the most concrete, like just for me. I have to stop working. I didn't stop working as much yesterday, but that.
I love that. So just put that in an area, and that is an area that a lot of people could borrow from you as well, because this is something where people get stuck, which is they can, you can get stuck in overworking, or working being the only thing that is really most satisfying. And it's okay to say, I love that you were so honest and said, I'm doing things that really aren't the healthiest for my self-care. And that is a beautiful starting point. How many of you have ever been there? Raise your hand if you've ever been where she just described. Yeah. Yeah. We've been there. That's a place.
Yeah.
So I want you to focus on the things that you think would be healthier for you, that you're willing to move towards. And if one of them is prettying up your space and prettying up you, the way that you worded that was just wonderful. If that helps you with self-care and attention to you, then that is great. So I'm hoping everybody got that there isn't a wrong way. I realized this was a lunch break activity. I'm not going to hold you much longer, but I am going to make a request, which is when you finish your self-care wheel, take a photo of it and email it to me, because I want to see the things that showed up on your wheel. And I want to see that you put a little more time and attention into, getting your details really specific about your wheres and your whens and your whats, your what are you going to be doing. And that you rounded out a couple of categories. The one thing I want you to know is social is considered one of the most important things that we do for our self-care. And I want you to know to aim for quality social whenever you're doing social. So even if you look at that and say, I'm going to make sure once a week you're doing a date with yourself, maybe you're adding into that, maybe every other week, I'm going to really make sure I show up for a social connection, whether it's a friend conversation by phone, or it's a walk with someone as opposed to an online thing, that I'm just going to make sure that I'm connecting in with one person deeply and really connecting. And you do that. I know that because I know you personally. So it's about that. It's about looking for that connecting depth and just making sure that we're making the space to actually do that, to really do that, because it is an important part of our well-being. And I know people who are introverts are like, no, I really don't need that for my well-being. But but even my dearest introvert friend loves to have a deep conversation. So once a week on a Thursday night, we have a standing time and we just check in for 30 minutes. And it's deep. It's a deep conversation. And she's like a total introvert. I would never describe myself that way, but that is her. And it's about depth and richness. So just make sure that when you're having connecting time, you're really present in it. And it's not this shallow kind of, I don't really know these people, and we're talking about nothing of deep interest. That's what I want you to avoid. And I want you to make sure that you're touching down for something deep, because it's just so important for your well-being, for your immune system, for every part of you. Okay, thank you for adding that in. I so appreciate your thoughts. Does anybody have anything they want to share before we wrap? If you do, feel free to put your hand up. Rebecca, unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
I've noticed for myself that I have with self-care, a lot of it just, it's all focused on me, and I retreat and I kind of do like my own thing. I have 5 kids. I have a really big family. So one of the things that I put on was family on my wheel, and it's just actually just being focused and honed in on all my kids and getting us all together for different activities that we all enjoy. And I put down like a few different ones, like board game nights or video game parties where we can all take turns trying to play whatever game that they're interested in at the moment. Movie nights, family cooking, something to do like that, like about once a week, where they're just everybody's honed in.
Love that. So it's family and it's family fun.
Yeah.
How old is the oldest?
20.
Wow. And the youngest?
2.
Okay. You got a spread there. And I can see why that's challenging. So just make sure that it's a section of your wheel and it's not your whole wheel.
Yeah, it's just a section.
Right. It's because otherwise, we can get so focused on how we bring others together, how we entertain, how we connect, how we collect, how we do our family, that we can find ourselves with nothing left for that book we want to read, or for that moment when we want to sit down with a sister or a friend and have a conversation that's not about the kids, you know, or pursue an interest of our own, like just one little thing that maybe is a little hobby that you like to do, you know. So it's hard to squeeze in space when we have little ones. And so I love that that's an important part of your self-care, is connecting to your family and how you do that, but that we don't want it to, we want to leave still a little room for other things.
Yeah, I homeschool them, so I feel like a lot of my interaction is not fun with them. It's just it's boring, like monotonous
Oh,
work. So then we end up all retreating, and there's a really hard time to have actual quality time with each other, because whatever time we have is school, it's not fun. So
right. And so you don't want to be that. You want to be fun mommy. I hear ya. I hear ya. You want to have the fun part too. That's really good catching yourself, that we can get absorbed in the tasks or the work or the important things to get taught and done, and then lose sight of the FUN. So never lose sight of the FUN. That's our closing statement here. That's a critical part of all self-care, is fun. That's always the starting point. So take good care, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to be here. Oh, thank you, Rachel. I love that.